God does not play around about forgiveness. It's said over and over again in the Bible. He forgives you, and you want him to forgive you for being a wretched sinner and putting him on the cross, but you won't forgive somebody who said a thing you didn't like.
I guess when you think about that word discipline, it immediately does pop into my head of, go to timeout or but
I did a load of laundry the other day, and I made sure to walk in the kitchen and go, hey, I just started some laundry in there.
Yeah, just walking around peacocking, talking about you.
I'm going to talk to the dads real quick. Fathers, I want you to think about something. What's the tone of your house? What's it sound like? Is it joyful play? Is it peaceful? Is there often a lot of fighting, a lot of drama? Is it loud? Is it disruptive? I got to tell you, you set the tone in your house. And I know exactly what I'm going to hear. People are going to say, oh, no, my kids are in control of that more than I am. Or, my wife, it depends on how she feels. We know happy wife, happy life. And that's all true. But I want you to know something. So I got some things to back up what I'm saying. First off, horseplay. Clinical psychologists note that a father that engages in dominant physical play produces a more socially adjusted child. Passive fathers have children that have a higher likelihood of physical aggression. This is the number one predictor of social confidence. Vocabulary and education. Children with highly involved fathers are twice as likely to make mostly A's in school. It's 31% compared to 17%. Father engagement, such as talking, reading aloud, interactive play, it correlates with a richer vocabulary, stronger early literacy, better executive function, and higher long-term academic outcomes. Even just 10 to 15 minutes a day from a father shows measurable gains. Early father involvement in the preschool years predicts better school readiness and reduced risk of academic struggles. Godliness and faith. We talked about in earlier episodes that a close fatherly bond transmits tradition at a 67% rate and regular participation in church at around 56%, often outweighing the mother's influence in this aspect. Crime and delinquency. Fatherhood absence is one of the strongest predictors of juvenile delinquency, substance abuse, criminal behavior, even controlling for income and education. Boys from absent homes are significantly more likely to be incarcerated. Every year that a father's not in the home increases odds around 5% that these things will happen. Up to 85% of the youth that's in prison come from fatherless homes. So think about it. If the presence of the father has this much of an outsized effect on what happens to the children, then how you engage in your presence in the home has to have an effect on the tone of the home, on the climate, on the atmosphere, whatever you want to call it. What you do in the home and how you participate affects that. So what we want to talk about today is how to build that home with your fatherly ministry, how to be the influence that creates the tone and the environment and the sound of the home that you want. All right, Dan.
Whew, dropping in heavy.
I thought long and hard about that one, man. It kind of weighed on my heart. I had a lot to say there on the matter. And once it came over me, I just started looking into it and just consuming information in the matter. And it was just confirmed over and over again. The way it started, where it came from was my wife and kid were out back. We homeschool, and they were out back on had a picnic blanket out, and we're out there doing school, and it was a rough day. You have good days, and you have rough days. It was a rough day. So the noise I'm hearing coming out of the backyard, my first thought selfishly was that it was disrupting me. I'm trying to do work, and I'm hearing them argue, and I'm having that I got to go fix it thought. What can I do to go fix that? But I really didn't have the time or the space. And so I just went out back, and we got a TV on the back patio, and I went and grabbed the remote. I didn't even say anything to either one of them. And I turned the TV on, and I took it to YouTube, and I went to the music section, and I turned on, I went out there and I turned the TV on, and I turned it on YouTube, and I went to the music section, and I turned on, I think it was Forrest Frank's Thankful, but I went to praise music and turned that on and turned it up and went and sat back down and continued what I was doing. And probably about 30, 45 minutes later, I realized that I hadn't heard them arguing again. And I went out there and checked on them, and they were laughing and they were enjoying each other. And yeah, I talked to my wife later, and they still had tension. It's not like it fixed everything, but it definitely it added a background noise to what was going on out there that didn't align with the conflict that was happening before. And it just had me thinking like, man, I didn't even really do anything. All I did was change the background noise. I changed the environment that they were in a little bit.
That's a pretty cool dad hack there. Get the father involved, right?
I don't have all the answers, but I try. I learn from my mistakes, and I found that sometimes I'll be up in my office working, and I'll come downstairs, and my wife and kid they've got a problem they're not getting through in schoolwork, or they have something that's not going the way they want it to or expect it to, and if I come in and my wife will tell me what the problem is, and she's often frustrated at this point because she's been in it for hours. And if I add on to the frustration, then that affects the way the rest of the day goes. Usually the best thing I can do is not necessarily fix it, but acknowledge what my wife's dealing with, and then talk to my daughter about the expectations and be calm and loving with both of them and let them know that I love them and I appreciate them working through whatever they've got going on. And, a little bit of, reverse psychology there where act like everything's fine and how much I love what they're doing instead of saying, y'all can't be fighting about this, or daughter, you've got to do this thing right, or whatever it is. It's better if I just be a calm presence, and that kind of bleeds into other things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Our environments are tremendously impactful on everything. I can think about, or what immediately comes to mind is when I'm stressed with work stuff, and I know I'm carrying that tension, and I walk through the house and I feel it just spread around. Like it's maybe I'm uh, presenting, I suppose, that I am under that stress, and that makes it more difficult for people to come with me with things that are bothering them, right? Like, don't bother dad with this right now. You can tell he's upset, and I'm certainly guilty of that. And um, that that dad tone spreads for sure.
Whether you're participating in it or not, I remember when I was a kid, my dad would be gone to work, and we were bad kids, and we'd be those up to 5 of us, depending on what period of life I'm talking about. But we would be arguing with my mom, and just being teenagers. And I can remember my dad coming home, and the way it was immediately, someone say dad's home, or mom say y'all better cut this out. Your dad's coming home, and the environment would completely change to adjust to him without him ever saying that it needed to, or him ever laying the law down on that or anything. It wasn't a rule by him. It was just the effect of, the father's carrying the home. He's out working, trying to provide for us, and the expectation that when he comes home, let's not add to his stress, or let's not pile the things on him. And I don't think he ever knew that he had that big of an effect on the environment.
Yeah. No, I remember that very well when I was a kid too. It was me and my twin brother. We were always have been best friends, always will. Like he's easily one of the most important people in my life. But just like kids, we would roughhouse. We would, things would escalate. We'd get in arguments. We'd um, do that normal child stuff. And I remember my mom would always say, "Your dad's gonna be home in a little bit. You gonna be acting that way when he gets here." And um, that was a pretty good indication of, hey, we better start settling this stuff down before he gets here. Not that because he was coming home to let loose a belt or anything, but I just knew it was different when he got there. There was a different sense of authority. Not that my mother didn't have any, but it was a different sense when he got there.
The kids especially, just kind of the expectations that you put down in front of them and the consistency that you give them and what you represent, they are molded by that, whether you realize it or not. I was watching something earlier this week that was giving me 8 keys to a Christ-centered home, and it was talking about, the first thing it said was, it was make God normal in your home. And what does that mean, to make God normal in the home? I think a lot of us as Christians will have a bad habit of, what I call Sunday morning Christians. So remember that you're Christian on Sunday, go to church, serve, but then the rest of the week, our language, our vocabulary, our demeanor, the way we treat our wife, the way we talk about people outside of the home might not necessarily represent that, and not bringing God into those everyday conversations, not not building an environment that you would go that you would carry into church. A couple of things I kind of wanted to cover in this episode to talk about to that aspect is, for starters, we live in a culture now that tries to redefine what family is. We have a lot of influences on the outside that are trying to change it and what the expectation is. And I think it's important to remember that whatever situation you're in, whether you are single, whether you're married with kids, whether you're hoping to have kids, that situation that you're in is a gift from God. That is, even if that moment isn't the way you would design it, that is the gift He's given you, and you want to treat that gift that He gave you like it's a blessing. And I know that's hard to say and think about, but if God gave you some kind of windfall, whether it be the job you wanted, or a pile of money, or the kid that you've been seeking for years that you weren't able to get, how would you treat that blessing in front of God? Would you would you yell at that child that you begged for 4 years in front of God, that you prayed and prayed for that child and He finally gave it to you, and are you going to yell at that in front of God? Because you are. If you are, that's essentially what you're doing. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
your home should be the first place that you model the behavior that you want from your kids, and that you show them how to appreciate the blessings that you have, even if they aren't necessarily the blessings that you thought you wanted.
Yeah, there's no pause button. "Hey, God, stay in here real quick and let me go, uh, discipline my children," or whatever it is. The presence of God is always there around us, and, uh, we we let our environments and things that are going on kind of get in the way of that, and maybe even forget that at some points. But there's not a there's not a pause. There's not a timeout. "Let me go do this." Like, it should always be "I'm gonna go in there. God's going with me. Let's go handle it together," kind of.
So that's kind of your first step, is like I said, make God normal in your home. Make sure you're representing that at all time. Make sure that you're showing appreciation for the blessings that He's given you and modeling that in front of your kids. And if you read Scripture and the expectation of modeling that behavior, I think for anyone, that's behavior that you would want your kid to model. You want your kids to be obedient to you. You want your kids to be kind to others, and you want your kids to love their neighbor. So, like I said, make God normal in your home, and part of that is the way you embody it. Make sure you're the same person outside of the home that you are inside of the home. So, don't be one person Sunday going to church, and be another person when you're sitting on the couch with your family, and then be another person when you're having a conversation with your neighbors, or your buddies in front of your kids, because your kids see all of that. And hypocrisy really is the easiest way to build distrust with your family. And everything else you do, with your wife, with your kid, everything, if there's distrust in the beginning, you're not going to be able to have any effect. Like, you're not going to be able to convince your wife to follow you as the head of the household and the leader, when you're not consistent and you're not believable. And your kids definitely, all of your rules are subjective if you're not a trustworthy person, and you're not following them. You expect your kids to use certain language or not use certain language. You expect them to be willing to learn and be willing to accept criticism and discipline and all that. But if your mouth, if what's coming out of your mouth doesn't match what you want to come out of their mouth, and the way that you consume new information isn't modeling the way you want them to, if they do it, they're only going to do it to satisfy you in the moment. They're not gonna put it inside of them and build habits out of it.
Um, yeah, it's very important because you'll see that a lot with children, like the way that you handle the stress of things. You'll see them model that, whether you're putting it into it. I felt really terrible, really bad earlier this week. My daughter was coming to ask me for something, and she asked a question, and before I can even respond, her response was, "In a minute," and walked off. And I kept thinking, that's I keep pushing things out. I was like, she's already getting that response of in a minute, in a minute, in a minute, and broke my heart for that. Like that was an immediate response for her. So they're learning everything from us. They're learning our characteristics, and then and as they learn those, they model them. And that that Sunday Christian thing is a tough one. Um, I, I feel like we all have characters that we play in different situations, and certain personalities, or if you're I'm not a public speaker, but when I get in front of like a crowd or something and speak in front of a crowd, I have to elevate and create these comforts that maybe aren't there, I guess. Um, and I guess we all do that to an extent, to have these certain people in our certain characters that we play to handle certain things. But the overlying part of that always needs to be based on our faith, our love for Christ, and let Him kind of elevate those other spots for us, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd say that, man. That's pretty rough. If I understood that right, that's almost like hearing your kid expect you to let them down in the moment,
Yeah, no,
because of
that's
your response.
exactly how it felt. Yeah, that was exactly how it felt, and it was, um, like, this was 4 or 5 days ago, and I'm still thinking about it nonstop.
No, I can understand that. And I've had moments like that with my kid where, I work, 40, 50 hours a week, and I have other projects like this that I do. And it's real easy for me to get caught up in my own things and put off what my kid might want me to do, even if it's just sit down on the floor and play dolls with her for a minute. Or hop on a video game and play a video game with her, or anything like that. It's really easy to put those things aside and tomorrow, in a minute, whatever it is. But what you don't realize, and they do, is how many times you've done that. And you kind of sometimes unintentionally set a precedence that, you know,
Yeah, and I think too, like, in as parents, there's a lot that they don't really, especially for younger children, they don't understand, like, the importance of some of the things that we're doing. But on the same token, that stuff that they're asking has high importance for them that we don't see that importance to them too. And so it's 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 really easy to get settled in ourselves and what we're doing, and forget about the impact or the importance of playing dolls with that child.
well, your kid. We went through a while there with where Evie, where she wanted to play family all the time. And it's all she wanted to do was get dolls out and play family, and it got boring to us. It got to be the same game over and over again, and bless her heart, she doesn't play by any rules. She likes to set rules for you, but she's not going to follow any of the rules in a game, and that can be frustrating. And you're human, so you get affected by it. And I kind of caught myself where it's like, man, I've told her no, or I've put off that or not wanted to do that, like, so many times. And I say I don't have time, and a lot of times I don't, but I found time to scroll through things on my phone. You know, I found time to have a phone call with somebody. I found time to go for walks. I found time for the things that bring me peace, but didn't donate my time to the things that bring her happiness.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really important. For something I heard the other day that was busyness builds calendars, but presence builds people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and the work you do is not to be forgotten. You know, that's what provides the home. That's what provides the ability to, you know, my daughter's at dance right now. It provides the funding for her to go to dance. It provides the outfits for when she's doing a pageant or whatever else it is. Her calendar is filled up and able to be full because of my busyness. But am I trying to build her a full calendar, or am I trying to grow a human? Am I trying to
Right.
build her into a person? And if I'm not present, then I'm not part of that influence of the person that I'm building. I have to be present to be part of the person she's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah, that that busyness is it's tough. There's a very difficult line that you kinda have to walk around with that, but like you said, though, I mean, I know time is a very, uh, finite resource, like, we only have so much of it in a day and everything, but, man, if I truly looked at what my tracker was and where I feel like I'm busy or I'm doing something, there's a lot that I'm not that busy or that I think I'm busy doing something, but it's just busy work, not the important meat and potatoes parts of everything, I guess.
I Another way I've heard it put is, don't be so focused on giving them a good life that you forget to give them a good day.
Wow. Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a pretty profound statement there. And I have a bad habit, man, of if I could do everything perfect, if I could organize my time and do everything the way that I really want to do it, then we would sit down at the table and have family dinner every night. I would dance with my daughter before she goes to bed for a few minutes. If it's just 2 songs every night. I would read her a book as she's laying down every night. And the reality is, I can make time to do all those things. But in the moment, it's real easy to be on my laptop on the couch trying to wrap up something I didn't get done earlier in the day, and we wind up eating dinner on the couch and watching TV, and before you know it, it's like, man, we actually haven't sat at the table and eaten dinner in a few weeks, you know? And, then it gets time for her to go to bed, and I've pushed my tasks where now it's too late for me to dance with her you know, read her a book, and I can blame her for it. I can say, well, you should have been faster with getting your bedtime routine done. And it's very true. My daughter's terrible at her bedtime routine. She's my daughter, and if she had it her way, she'd go to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning every night. She would go to sleep when her body won't stay awake anymore, which is
yeah,
pretty much the philosophy I lived most of my life by. But I'm the parent and I'm the father, and I set the tone. And if I set that expectation, then I can make there be time for us to do all of those other things. And we can have that family dinner, and we can have that time to dance. And man, the dinner table is sacred. That time together is sacred. And the dances before bedtime, there's gonna be a last one of those. And I don't
yeah.
know which one it's gonna be. It might have been yesterday.
That's tough. That's tough to think about there. That makes me think of, there was a period where my daughter, she would wake up every night, probably about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. This was when she was smaller, and, she would wake up every night, and I'd go in there, I'd lay down with her and try to get her back to sleep, and it would be so frustrating because I knew I'd have to get up, and it wouldn't be long before I'd have to be awake, and I needed that sleep and everything, and I'd often, in the moment, try to remind myself, there will be a day where I don't have these moments. And all she's wanting, like, it's like the best version of herself. When she wakes up at night, all she wanted to do was just sing and talk and just, all the happy little things. And I'm laying there like, please just go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. But those are some of my most treasured little moments with her when she was, nothing but love pouring out. And I still get some of those every so often. She'll still wake up on occasions, but it won't be forever.
That's funny you'd say that. Evie's the same way. Like, she is a terror during her bedtime routine. That is such a trouble. But if she wakes up in the middle of the night, she's like the sweetest angel that just wants to cuddle and love and it's such a difficult thing because I've got the same thoughts. Please go to bed. I'm tired. Please go back to bed. But I'm also like, why can't you be this version of you at like 6:30?
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? Like it's I guess I always make the joke. The good Lord made our children so beautiful to us that they'll push us to the absolute breaking point, and then that beauty kicks in, and you remember what it's all for. I guess God didn't make them beautiful, and we'd have killed them.
Yeah, right. I have to remind myself daily that she's a blessing. She's a blessing. She's a blessing. It took us almost 2 years to get pregnant with her, and if I have to remind myself of how many times I prayed for her to be born,
Yeah,
because there's some days I wish she'd just go away for a minute,
yeah,
and all she wants is to spend more time with her dad because that's that that moment, in the morning time when we're spending time together before I start work might not be that important to me, but I don't know how important it is for her. I don't realize how much it's setting up her day. And we've been doing something recently where I get up in the morning and I do my morning scriptures, and she has her morning scriptures that she listens to. And we've been having my wife got her to start writing in a notebook 3 things that you're happy about and 1 thing that you're going to work on. And when you start something like that, you can't be picky because she might be happy that she has dance that day. She might be happy that she got $5 from the Tooth Fairy, whatever it is. And the thing she's going to work on might not be the thing you wanted her to write down. You've probably got a disciplinary thing that you wanted her to focus on. And she has watched that moment yesterday when it was a big moment to you and you were fussing at her. That has gone out of her brain. And like the other day, my daughter wrote something that was like, her friend Raylan calls her pretty often, and she wrote something like, "I'm going to work on not missing Raylan's calls." You know, and you got to learn to take what that is that's important to them, and then work that into their learning. Be dependable. What I heard was, what you hear at first is, "Oh,
I
you're
want to talk
going
to
to
my
not miss."
buddy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. But use that be dependable and make it apply to other situations. And okay, you have an expectation that you want to be dependable for Raylan. How else in your life can you work on being dependable? Making sure that you're ready on time for your dance class, or that you've gotten ready to go to bed on time so that we can have our nightly dance, or whatever it is. And you learn to teach those lessons. A big part of being a parent is setting the tone. Set that tone with peace and not pressure. Learn to give positive criticisms and positive discipline. This one is from me, but you use correction to teach discipline. You don't use discipline to teach correct behavior. So we like to think of discipline as a verb, as you discipline your child, you something you do to your child, but you don't actually teach your. And I'm not saying don't discipline. I discipline my kid, absolutely discipline. It's biblical to discipline. It says don't spare the rod, but you got to think beyond that. In that you don't actually teach them the good behavior in the moment of discipline. You You teach them to stop the bad behavior that's interfering with them learning the good behavior. You teach them the good behavior in the follow-up to that correction. And that's the discipline. What discipline really is a noun. You want to teach them how to have discipline, how to be disciplined, how to correct themselves when they're not being disciplined.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I often, I guess when you think about that word discipline, it immediately does pop into my head of, uh, you know, go to timeout or go to, but in other places, like you talk about like martial arts or something, discipline is your self-control to do the things that you need to do. And that's really the greater sense of it. That's, we use it as a word for the actionables, but discipline is what you're setting up for the future.
And it's funny you said self-control there. We talk about the fruit of the spirit. That's what you're really trying to get out of your child. You want them to be peaceful. You want them to be loving. You want them to have self-control. You want them to have all of those qualities that represent the fruit of the spirit, and you've got to embody them yourself. So you've got to set that tone with peace. And that needs to be the baseline. It needs to be that the expectation is that our home's going to be peaceful and our home's going to be happy and we're going to exhibit positive behaviors. And when we go towards that, the verb discipline, that's not the baseline. That's not the expectation. That's the correction that we have to put in place, the rules that have to be there when we're not doing what is the baseline. It shouldn't be that your children fear talking to you or they fear being around you because, dad's going to discipline me, or dad's going to, anytime dad knows what I do, then I'm going to wind up getting in trouble. It's best if I just hide everything from my father. And if you put too much focus and spend too much time being just the correction and not being the positive influence, then that's not going to teach them to do right. That's going to teach them to avoid people like you.
Yeah. I often think about this. Isn't like I'm so blessed to have had just still have a tremendous dad. Like I wouldn't trade him for anyone else in the world. Although I did make a joke one time about Gene Stallings. If I couldn't have my dad, and he never lets me hear the end of that one. But one of the things that that was one of the most impactful things to him was when I was a child. He always stressed to me, I have to know that you're telling me the truth. You have to be able to tell me the truth, because I've got to know that when you tell me something, that's what it is, and I can help you I can support you. I can back you up on that. And I think about a movie, Open Range, where I think it was Robert Duvall, in that he was playing cards with some cowboys that were around him in the camp, and one of the cowboys had cheated in cards, I suppose. And he looked at the guy and he said something along the lines of, a man's trust is never worth a deck of cards. And so even in the small things, the honesty and the truth that we tell creates that. Like if you cheat in a game of cards, that doesn't seem like a big deal at the time, or maybe it's just, how everybody else is playing and everything like that. But when it comes to someone else trusting you, that is something that stays in their mind. The honesty that we get. I try to. Honesty is a super, super important trait for us, and it's important for us to be honest with our children as well, so that they learn why that is important too.
Well, and in the little things, you kind of set a precedence there where, if you're not honest with them about the day to day, and you're not honest in your actions and your behavior, then you're setting a precedence to not trust you when it's a bigger thing. And, me and you both play video games, and I used to play a lot of like battle royale games where, you land and you don't have anything and you've got to go find a box and you've got to loot. And I used to complain. My daughter and my wife have both heard me complain where the littlest thing that I noticed is if you land, and when you land, everybody's trying to get stuff to start. And if I run to a box and I open it, and you're playing with random people a lot of times that you don't know. If I open it and that random person runs up behind me and snatches everything out of that box that I just opened, I know I can't trust that person later in the game when my life's on the line. And I
Right.
know some people don't understand when I say that. I know that seems like, well, you're both just trying to loot. He just grabbed the stuff. That's not a big thing. No, if he wasn't honest and showing ethics in that moment that didn't matter, then when the stakes are higher for him, he's not going to be honest and trustworthy in that
Yeah.
moment either. He's going to bail on you. You know, when you're in a room fighting three people, he's going to leave you in there by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I play a game called Arc Raiders, and it's an extraction game. Um, it's one of those where I sometimes struggle with it because I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and most of the lobbies I'm in are not. Uh, you can't do that stuff, but it, it's it's tough too. Like you may not be affecting just yourself in those things. Like for your child, if there's those little things, then the next person that comes along in those situations, are they able to trust outside of the household?
That's a good point. So you're modeling that behavior, you're modeling those ethics, you're modeling those values, those biblical values that you want them to represent, and you're teaching them to trust. You're supposed to be the most trustworthy person in their life. And if you're not modeling that trustworthiness with them, what gives them a basis to trust somebody that's outside of the home? You know, or what shows them who to trust and who not to? Where do they draw the line at? And do they become good at discernment and being able to understand who to trust?
Yeah, it's a weird line. There's not certainly not everybody is. Um, you can't trust everybody out there. There's people with poor intentions, but you see a lot of trouble from people that can't even trust the good people, I guess. Um, it, it's a it's it's sad to think about. Um, you have to go through your whole life not trusting anybody, then you're alone.
Well, and if your father or your mother haven't been somebody that you can trust to at least be who they say they are, then how do you know what a good person is beyond that? How do you know what to trust? You know,
Yeah,
and you're in the home with this person who's telling you that you better be a good person because that's what God said to do, or whatever. But then that person is not modeling it. Well, now you begin to associate the characteristics of that parent with not being a good person, with not being trustworthy, with not being somebody that you can go to with things, and so how does that, like you said, affect your other relationships? Now, honestly, we're all gonna mess up. We're all gonna we all tell a lie every now and then. We all, sometimes it's easier just to tell your kid, whatever that you want them to hear so that you can move on from it. I completely understand that. And that's why the next thing is really important, which is the Bible says, forgive because he's forgiven you. So as a parent, as a father or mother, be quick be quicker to apologize than anything, and also be quick to forgive. So if you want to be forgiven, you want God to forgive you for your sins, you want your kid to forgive you when you do something wrong, so you need to be quick to forgive whatever they do, and don't hold it over them, don't lord it over them, and hold it against them. But also be quick to apologize if your kid has done something wrong. Man, there's been some times where I've gotten so much further with my daughter because I got angry that she hadn't done something I wanted her to do, or she had done something she wanted to do, and I've yelled at her, I've talked down to her in a way that I'm not proud of after it's over with, and she knows that. She's not happy that I spoke to her that way, but she's also trying to learn and decide if that's a way she should let somebody speak to her. And if I wouldn't let somebody else talk to my daughter that way, do I really want to be the representation of that? So I go to her and say, hey, I really need you to do better about X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. We have clear rules and expectations. but I'm sorry for talking to you the way I did. I really shouldn't have gotten upset. I shouldn't have used the words I used. I shouldn't have done whatever behavior it was that I wouldn't approve of someone else doing to her. Apologize for that thing. And it's so often where I can tell that I've built trust by doing that, where then the thing I was trying to teach her actually lands. And again, in the moment, she didn't learn from that correction that I was giving her. She learned so much more from the conversation we had sitting on the couch after I apologized.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing. That's there like you said too, there's many times where I'll, you know, kids will do something wrong and I'll go in and I just as soon as I leave that room, I handled that so bad. So bad. And going back and saying, "Look, I'm sorry that wasn't the way I should have that's not how I should have talked to you," or anything like that. That's the message that comes with that I listen to. Um, but and I think about me when somebody blows up or something, like, I just tune it out, not listening. I'm just gonna let you get whatever it is out of your system, and I'll just close my ears.
Because it becomes more about them. You realize that it's more about them and letting them become, feel better and get through whatever they is than you taking the lesson. It doesn't, if the proportion's not there in their response and what you did in your mind, then you're not taking the instruction there. You're going, okay, well, I guess they need this. And Scripture says, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in your body, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs and thankfulness in the hearts of God. And whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father. This is telling you right here to lead with love. Find peace in Christ and embody that. Above all these things, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. These are biblical concepts we're talking about. It's not just that it's better in today or we've discovered it. It tells you from all the way back in Scripture that this is how you're supposed to be that representation for your child. And you're the first representation of faith to your child. You're the first father they've known. You want them to submit to God the Father, but you've made them scared to submit to you. You've made them want to protect themselves against you. You've made them fear your anger. I don't think I think that's something that a lot of Christians have done poorly over the years, is tried to just instill the fear of God. And I don't think it's effective to look at somebody and say, you better do this because God's watching. Yeah, and I've done it, but I don't find it to be effective. I don't think that's I ain't doing nothing because you tell me I better. I don't work like that. If you tell me I better, I'm mm, you know.
We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes I would just want to prove to you this I don't have to.
yeah.
I respond to the carrot much better than the stick. And again, like I said earlier, it's not to say that you shouldn't have discipline. Sometimes you got to pull out the stick,
Yeah.
but the stick, that kind of discipline, that kind of correction is supposed to be the barriers, right? Where you're going down the course, and as long as you keep it between the lines, then there's no reason for the stick to come out. There's no reason for you to discipline it in that manner. It's supposed to be the barrier to get them back on the track. If you're using discipline as just a fear tactic, you better do exactly what I want you to do, or I'm gonna go towards the rod. I I I think it makes the rod less effective. I think it numbs them in the long run.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We used to laugh at my mom when she spanked us. It got to a point where it was like, I'd rather you spank me than take something away from me, than
Yeah,
ground me or punish me. If you spank me on Thursday and I go out on Saturday, great.
yeah. I can handle that trade-off. I'll do what I want to and take a light one.
I'm sitting at home thinking about what I should have done, on Saturday, and you got me cleaning up the trash in the yard or whatever. I wish I hadn't have done what I did on Thursday. If I could go back, I'd correct my behavior myself so that I could go out.
Yeah.
So we talked about forgiving and saying sorry. I mentioned earlier about the table. I think that that's pretty important. Protect the table. And when I say family dinners, I don't mean this kind of family dinner.
Yeah.
And I also don't mean I tried something for a while that I didn't like the way it worked, where we would sit down and talk about our day at family dinner. But if you're not careful, it drifts into disciplinary time, where what went wrong today? What do I need to fix today while we're trying to sit down and eat dinner? And is that really what you want your family dinner to be? Did you want it to be, we're going to fight and then we're going to sit here and eat quietly, or I'm going to tell you all the things you did wrong and then tell you better hurry up and eat your dinner so you can go to bed? Like, it sounds awful. It should be a safe space. Put the phone down, put the distractions aside, turn the TV off, don't turn a show on, sit down at the table and ask them how their day was that day. Not what did you do wrong or what can I fix? And when they tell you how their day was that day, don't pry into like, well, did you do everything right? Oh, well, you had dance today. How was dance? Did you leave those questions for later. Sit down on the couch or spend a different time. Ask them, how many times did your teacher have to tell you you weren't doing the right thing today? Do that a time outside of your family dinner. Sit down and spend time together and make that family dinner sacred, where when they're 30, they really want to come back and have family dinner. They're not glad that they're not having to sit down with you at the table.
Yeah. It should just be a hangout, like hanging out with your family.
They should be able to, if there's anything beyond positivity there, it should be the things they need help with. It should be them pouring out their heart and saying, something didn't go well with a friend today. Do you have any advice? They should be able to come to you in those moments, and you guys should bond, pray together at the beginning of the meal, and spend that time together, modeling that family, that godly home that you want to have. Now, on that note, I said pray together. I think things like expressing love and praying and worshiping together, make sure that you don't just do that when you're sitting down at a table at a meal. Don't just pray before your meal and that be the end of it. The church I go to has a philosophy called pray first, and model that behavior where you show them that, if they're nervous about something, give them advice and then say, let's pray on it. You pray on things. When you're upset about things, you're always going to stress, you're going to worry, you're going to panic. All those things are natural, but show them that you're trusting and leaning on God in those moments. So model that prayer outside of that. And then what I mentioned about love, don't just say I love you when it's bedtime. Don't just say I love you when you're getting off the phone, when you're saying goodbye. I love you, bye. And that's the end of it, because you're kind of equivocating I love you with goodbye and good night. And so say I love you when you see each other in the morning or at random moments. If you I have a philosophy I try my best to live by, and it's, if you have a positive thought, then say it out loud. How many times do you think something positive and don't say it, and later think, man, I really should have said that? I think I heard somebody recently was like, days later, you're like, hey, I forgot to tell you, you look good in that outfit the other day. Well, why didn't you say it when they were wearing the outfit?
Use that, man.
It feels so pretty. Exactly. So, and that's something that's really important. I heard recently there is a psychologist that says that, and I don't know I don't know what the science or how they measured this, but he said chemically what it takes to process a negative criticism, that it takes 5 positive affirmations to counter what it takes in your brain to process that one negative criticism. So if you speak negativity into your child, into your wife, into your family, if you say, wife, I can't believe you spent this money or did this thing, or you tell your child, I can't believe you weren't doing this thing I wanted you to do, or that it actually takes 5 of your of your praises, of your compliments, of the things they do good to balance that out. And like I said, I don't know the science. I don't know how they measure that, but I can absolutely feel that in my heart because Dan, if I tell you something positive, hey, I really appreciate you doing this thing, and I also tell you, I can't believe you said that thing to me, which one are you thinking about an hour from now?
Oh, I didn't even hear the positive after you said the negative. It's all with the race, right?
Exactly. And you're going to beat yourself up worse. You're going to build an internal voice, an inner monologue. I talk about the sound of your home. There's going to be a sound inside your wife and your kids' head too. And they're going to build that internal monologue. And what do you want that internal monologue of your kids saying to themselves or your wife saying? Do you want your wife? Man, my wife loves me with all her heart. And I have to be careful what I speak over her because she will internalize it. And I feel guilty often if I come off wrong with a criticism or say a thing a way that I shouldn't say it because she'll internalize that and she'll be far worse on herself than I am. I can only imagine what the tone inside of her head is after I've said something critical. And the same with your kid, man. If you are constantly fussing at your kid, you're constantly telling them what they did wrong. What do you think there's two options there. They either tone you out and don't hear you, or they're repeating those things back to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times, with when I was, having some trouble with my son, as far as some habits and things that he was doing, we had gotten with his doctor, and the doctor had said, "Don't focus so much on the negative parts, just make sure that you're positively reinforcing when those negative things aren't happening or they exhibit the manners that you want them to have," I suppose, and, uh, what you had just said is still just hitting me, there is a lot of times that I don't bring attention to positive things, and that should be constant. It should be that's a big part of how we exhibit love is with those positive comments, the positive things that we reinforce, so, um, I guess what I'm gonna take from that is when I have a nice thought, I should probably spit it out and make it second nature to deliver those things, and I expect that by doing that, I'll run some tests around here, but I expect by doing that, that certainly makes the environment tremendously different. It's so easy to point out the bad stuff all the time. That comes out easy. That's without a thought. Hey, don't do that. Hey, this, that. But the positive stuff takes some effort, and I would like to reverse that, I guess, in my life, I suppose.
That's pretty admirable for you to even say that, man. And it doesn't have to be something big. It can be, just anything. Thanks for staying close to me. We went for a walk earlier. Or hey, you did a really good job listening when we were at the park, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a major thing, but we tend to reserve compliments for the big things. But we'll quickly correct on,
Mhm.
hey, you're too far away. Get over here.
Yeah,
Whatever it is, we'll quickly correct, but then we'll save those compliments for like something major.
yeah. Yeah, and I don't think admirable or anything, but it's like me and you had a conversation a couple days ago about this and this podcast that we're doing. This is a journey for us. This isn't us saying I would never ever, you'll never hear a statement out of my mouth saying I'm a model parent or I know what I'm doing or you should take my advice on this. This is our path of us figuring it out and using this to allow God to do that work inside of us. It's the every time we have an episode, I hope and my prayer is that I get better from it. And that's what we're working toward, I suppose.
Oh man, most of the thoughts that come to me, the ideas that come over me for this is based on my failures. We talk about protecting the dinner table, and that's because I see my roller coaster of being really good at that at sometimes and being really bad at it at other times. It's not because, oh, me and my family sit down and eat dinner at the table every night. No, we slip into eating at the couch and passing out on the couch, waking up in the middle of the night, and getting everybody in bed. We fail just as often as we succeed. But it's about looking back and finding those things that you did learn from, and again, applying those biblical concepts. Because how often do you realize that where you're failing it is something that you probably could have read in scripture or have read in scripture recently that you weren't applying there. This is all a lesson to me day by day. I'm By the time I figure out how to be a parent and how to have a biblical, godly home, I won't have any kids in the home
Right.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. This to me, this podcast is a lot of accountability for, um, and there's things that we talk about, and I'll think, "Ooh, I'm so bad at that. I'm such a fraud." But it's you're only a fraud if you stop trying to improve.
That's a great point, man. I have the same thoughts where, I'm preparing for this, I'm planning for this, I'm pulling up the things I'm going to say, the scripture I'm going to use, and so often I'll that voice in the back of my head will go, well, how can you even say that? You don't model that behavior, But like you said, I'm trying to model those behaviors. It's that I'm a human and I fail.
Yeah.
And we continue to learn from that, man. Uh, we talked about earlier about how your presence builds people. Another thing you make sure you do is take the time to build those memories, man. Set aside time to spend with your kids. Stop making it happen on accident with your wife. Make sure you get some time for somebody else to watch your kids, so you can spend time with your wife. And I know that can be difficult for all of us to do. We don't trust for nothing, and it's not that we don't trust other people. It's that we don't trust our kid to be who she's supposed to be when she's outside of the house, and we'll manage
Yeah.
it better than anybody else. And then you realize, man, we haven't given ourselves a break in months. So make sure you do those things. And I think the last thing I want to put in about having a Christ centered home is remind each other who you are in Christ. Make sure that it's very clear. We talked about not using fear. Uh, Use the positivity. Remind um your wife, your kid of the goals that you're trying to accomplish, what this environment you're trying to build. These aren't secrets that you keep to yourself. This is a behavior that you want to build a precedence around with your whole family, where you're all doing this together. And we've talked before about the father being the head of the household, and the wife being the guide that makes sure that everything is going the way that it needs to be. Everybody's got a role in this, and you gotta voice that shared goal. And I don't think anything we've said here is gonna be, oh no, we're definitely not doing that. You know, Go tell your wife and kid that you'd like to make sure you spend more time together and be more positive and have more family dinners, and you let me know if anybody objects to that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's none of this stuff is even intimidating, I guess, as far as like a great task that you're gonna have to surmount. It just all starts with the little stuff, and I would even argue to say that you would see immediate results. Um,
I agree, man. I think that 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 positive reinforcement is going to come out of it pretty quick. And the things that I've mentioned here are things I've learned from, and then I've seen other people say it, and I've recognized those wins. And like you said, it's not something that takes It's not something that takes months, and it's not something you have to change your whole life around. Eat the family dinner once a week,
Mhm.
once every couple weeks. You know, pray together once a week outside of in church. It's great to go to church. It's great to have that family time where you go to church together. But you're wanting, what we've been talking about here is building a godly home. This whole series that we've done over these first 6 episodes is about bringing God into your home and being a leader in that. You can't do that and isolate it just to church time. So just start with small behaviors. And I actually had a few things that I wanted to go through, that are how you can do that in your week. So, um, so what we've been doing for these first 5 or 6 weeks here is, like I said, we've been talking about in the home. How do we bring Christ into the home? How do we model what we want and what our expectations are? And as we move forward in this series, we're going to kind of move outside of the home, and we've got some things planned about what is Christianity, and I want to go through what the different beliefs are, and what it actually means to hold that. So I wanted to say some things to kind of culminate and round out what we've been doing here. And so the first one is Deuteronomy 6, 5-9 says, love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength. Wear his commandments on your foreheads. Make that what your kids expect to see in the home. Like I said earlier, make God normal in the home.
That verse today, I don't know if you knew this or not, but that's the what was it? Verse, let's see, 6:6, I think, was the Gateway Bible verse of the day too.
Was it really?
Yeah, and I've talked to you about this. I don't remember if I mentioned it here, but a lot of times at night when I'm going to bed, I know I'm probably frying my brain with Bluetooth and everything, but I put an earbud in and I listen to scripture as I'm going to bed. And I woke up last night and that was a verse there. So I think I don't know. I don't have anything profound to say about it or anything that it's been revealed, but I do feel like that's a verse worth exploring. It's something that the Lord is pressing with there.
I appreciate you bringing that up, man. I can absolutely agree on that. So the second one comes from Mark 10. Says, from the beginning, God made them male and female. The two will become one flesh. So we hear that, and it goes on to say, let no man separate the two. We hear that, and we want to talk about the male and female. We want to talk about divorce because of let no man separate them. But I think there's another point that's important to remember there is be united in what you do and show that united front to your kids, to your family. Don't let anything come between you while you're together. Not just so that you don't get divorced, but so that you come off as one flesh working together. You're supposed to be, have common goals. So, wives, teach your children to respect your husband, and husbands, teach your children that leadership is love and sacrifice. Model that in your daily behavior. So start showing that immediately. Start representing that with your kids.
Yeah, that's makes me think of well, what did your mother say? And
That's
if we if we're going to contradict something in that, then you get that fractured road, I guess. Like, I'm going to go to mom for this because she's going to tell me on these things, or dad's going to say something different. You don't want to split that road. You don't want the path to be the same.
well, and you've taught them inconsistency there, where it's not the rule that matters. It's not the guidance that matters. It's the person you asked.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about you two being a united front. It's about there being something behind the rules and the standard that you've set to where it doesn't matter who you ask, you're going to get the same response. And so then that brings value and power to the things you're saying because you've shown a united front on it. And if you're both saying it and you're united in it, then it means something. Um, Next, we went through Ephesians 6 before, but Ephesians 6 is about children obey your parents. Obedience teaches wisdom, and teach your children that discipline is something you learn, not something done to you. Model that for them. Lay that expectation that they do what you ask, that they be obedient, but teach them why. Speak that over them. Show them that doing that doesn't result in, you standing behind them saying you better keep doing it, but put you all on the same page, and show them the positive behind it. Something I wanted to mention earlier when I said that your kids actually learn when with the positive reinforcement. I used to help people train their dogs, and I'm a strong advocate for crate training. And I know people are going to think, well, it's a kid, it's not a dog. There's methods to the way you do things, and I'm an advocate for crate training, and I've had to teach a lot of
Dogs,
people
not
that
kids.
you're right with dogs. But the whole idea behind crate training is you put them in a small environment where what you're trying to do is you're trying to teach them not to use the bathroom in the house, and you put them in a small environment where they don't want to do the behavior that you don't want them doing in the house, where they're not going to use the bathroom in their crate. And then you leave them in there until you're ready to take them outside, and it's likely that they want to use the bathroom. And then you take them out of that crate and you immediately take them outside where they're going to use the bathroom. And as soon as they use the bathroom outside, you say, "Oh, that's a good boy. I'm so proud of you," blah, 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 blah. And that trains them so much faster than you trying to catch them using the bathroom in the house and punish them for it. And the thing I noticed when I was doing this is that the ones that were against crate training because they thought it was cruel, they didn't want to control their dogs, that environment that much. Oh, you've restricted them to a crate. What actually winds up happening is you wind up with negative discipline, where what they're doing is they're in a fight with their dog until it's house trained. Where I'm now arguing with my dog all the time until I've gotten it to a point of being house trained. The dog didn't learn because they yelled at it. The dog didn't even understand why they were yelling at it most of the time. The dog didn't learn until they got the dog to do the thing they were trying to get him to do, and then got a reward for it and got positive reinforcement out of it. And then suddenly the behavior changed, and next thing you know, the dog's rushing to go out the door because you're going to tell him good boy when he does it. Your kids work a lot the same way. Your kids learn from how they satisfy you, from how they get positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
They learn what not to do from punishment. They learn what to do from that positive reinforcement.
Yeah, I often think about when I'm trying to learn things, like, you can, like if you're reading guidelines or something, if you just read the guideline, you kind of have a sense of it. But if you understand why that guideline is in place, then you really, really understand it.
Could you imagine trying to learn like a new software program and it's saying, well, don't click this button and don't click that button and make sure you don't do this and don't do this. And it's like, great, I still don't know, like, what am I supposed to do?
Mhm.
That I'm still going to do. The next thing I do is probably wrong. I'm just turning the software off. I'm not using it anymore. So moving on from there, each has his own gift from God. Whatever, like we mentioned before, whatever situation you're in, pray over it, thank God for it. Make sure that your family knows that you appreciate the situation you're in. Make sure they know that they're a blessing. You'll get a lot more out of your family letting them know they're a blessing than making them feel like a burden.
Very true.
Which is hard because we're men, we want peace, right? That's the number one thing we want is peace. And so anything that disrupts our peace, we have a tendency to fight the demons that are disrupting our peace all the time. And then the moment we get peace, we just want to sit on the couch and be quiet, and zone out of it, and not show that appreciation.
Yeah. And if you're not, if we do want that peace, and everything that we're doing, like the way that you handle getting that peace now either sets up if you have peace later or if you've just dealt with that in a short-term sense.
That's a good
So
point.
even if it is harder to deal with what's disrupting that peace at the time, you're going to deal with it somewhere down the line as well.
Well, and you want them to come to you with the disruptions, the problems, the things. You don't want your family to separate the disruptions in their life from your peace so that they maintain your peace. You want to be involved in that and part of that and bring them peace. You want them to be a part of your peace, not protecting your peace.
Exactly.
1 Corinthians 16, let all that you do be done in love. What you affirm multiplies. Period. With anybody. The things that you speak affirmation over grow. Make sure that you're doing everything showing what you love, not just what you despise and what you can't stand. I promise you that your wife and kids know what you hate.
Yeah, very true.
They'll readily say
Very
it.
true.
You know, Dan can't stand it when I blank, or he really can't handle it if blank. That's one of the things your loved ones know about you quickly. But do they know what you really love that involves them? Not just the thing you love that's separate from them, but what about what they do and what they bring to your life do you love and appreciate? Make sure you speak affirmations over that so that they know those things. And I promise you, the more you do that, the more you'll see those things multiply, because your wife wants to hear how grateful you are. She wants to hear when she's done great things for you. She wants to know that how much you appreciate that thing that you expect her to do that she does anyways. I promise you, she wants to know how much you appreciate her doing it, even if it
Yeah.
seems mundane.
Well, we do, right? It's no different.
Yeah,
No
how do
different
you
than
act when you
anybody
do the
else, right?
dishes?
Yeah.
I did a load of laundry the other day, and I made sure to walk in the kitchen and go, "Hey, I just started some laundry in there."
Yeah, just walking around peacocking, talking about your
Yeah. I don't even mean to do it or realize I'm doing it. Oftentimes I do it, and it's the most positive thing. I'm doing it because I think how much my wife's going to appreciate that I do this, right?
Mhm.
I just like buying a present. When I'm terrible at surprises. When I buy a present, all I can think about is how much my wife's going to really enjoy opening this present.
Yeah.
But then I can't wait to give it to her because I want her to know that I can't wait for that moment when she appreciates it. It's the same way doing some laundry or the dishes or cleaning up or planting the flowers that she wanted there to be planted this year. I can't wait for her to notice it. I got to come to her and be like, I planted those zinnias a while ago.
Yeah,
you know, and it's
yeah,
in positivity. It's in, I can't wait to see her be the positive come out of her from it. I can't wait to see her happy because it's done. They feel the same way. So say that positive thing to them. Want to remind you again to, when you mess up this week, apologize for it. When your wife or your kid, when they do something wrong, don't steam over it, don't bull in it, don't go forgive them for it. And that's for you. You go offer that forgiveness. God does not play around about forgiveness. It's said over and over again in the Bible. He forgives you, and you want him to forgive you for being a wretched sinner and putting him on the cross, but you won't forgive somebody who said a thing you didn't like or didn't give you the thing you wanted or didn't pay attention to you. You interrupted me 3 times earlier, and I'm mad now. That kind
yeah.
of thing. You won't
You
forgive
know,
the smallest thing.
that's like the foundation of our faith is that we are forgiven through Christ, and that makes everything so different. Like, that's where the peace comes from. Is because we certainly don't deserve it, right? Absolutely don't deserve it. This grace that we're given is just a unwarranted gift, and if we can offer that out as well, that's peace bringing for others too. And so that's I'm gonna be I'm gonna be more positive and more forgiving this week. I think that's what I'm getting out of this for sure. I don't deserve it. Maybe other people don't deserve it either, but that's what makes it so beautiful, and that's where we see what that love is.
We don't deserve that forgiveness. I don't deserve half the blessings I've been given. I haven't earned it. I will never earn it. The least I can do is show appreciation over it instead of focusing on what's not perfect. And I have a bad habit of daddy fixes everything. That's what I'm known for in my house. And I have a bad habit of being in fixer mode instead of love and appreciate mode.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, what I want to wrap up with is these aren't your secret. These are your family shared goals. So go forward and share this with your family. Make some decisions on, hey, like I started this show asking what's the sound of your house and letting you know that you set the tone for your house. So take assessment of that. Uh, Audit what the sound of your household is and see where you're contributing to it or not contributing to it. Just a reminder, this began with statistics about the outsized effect that fathers have on their home. So audit that sound in your household and decide what changes can be made. And don't just think about what's broken that needs fixed. Think about what can be added to that sound. It's not just about I need to get rid of this thing that's messing me up. Maybe you need to add a little bit more praise music in the background. I mean that literally and figuratively. Think about what you can add to that environment to change the tone, because I promise you, the other sounds in the house are going to start to harmonize with the sound that you're putting into it.
Well said, man. That was great.
So, make a decision. Decide, if it's that you want to have more family meals. Do you want to make sure you dance with your daughter more often before she goes to bed? Do you want to make sure you're reading more books to them? Do you want to make sure you're bringing better vocabulary into the home? If you're affecting your kids' vocabulary, what vocabulary are you speaking into them? They spend probably more time with mom than they do you in most situations. You are the thing that's bringing the outside influences in. You have conversations that don't involve them, and before you know it, you're bringing that language in. How many times have you recognized that your kids have said things that you're like, where did they, man, I didn't believe they have heard that word. And a lot of times it came out of your mouth without you realizing that you said it. Be intentional about what you're speaking over them and into them. Make decisions about how you want to add to that and make a plan for it. If maybe you decide, you know what, the first Monday of every month, we're going to sit down and eat dinner together. I think most of us can manage that one way or another, whether that's the specific you do or however it is. But audit your house, decide what you want the sound to be intentional, make a difference.
Fantastic.
So that's all I got today, man. I think this was a really good episode. This was something I was passionate about because this is I definitely have an outsized effect on my home, and sometimes I take that for granted and think a little too much about myself and how things are affecting me instead of how I'm affecting things. And I want to do better in that, and I'm going to work hard on that, and I hope that others do too.
I'm gonna go drop some compliments and positivity and just see what happens.
I heard that. Man, have a good evening. Go love on the kids. Go speak something positive over them, and talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Sounds good, man.